everyone here. I'm the new medical director at New Amsterdam, and just to confirm, you are both in charge of your respective harvest teams?
Yes. Correct.
Great. Dr. Sharp here has been.
First, I'd like to introduce David Schulner. David Schulner is the creator, showrunner, executive producer. David Schulner started his television career on Ed Zwick and Marshall Herskovic's Beloved and Once Again. The other credits include Desperate Housewives, Do No Harm, Emerald City, just to name a few. He's an accomplished playwright with plays produced off Broadway and the creator of Clone, a popular ongoing comic. Welcome, Mr. Schulner. Welcome. Next, I'd like to welcome Dr. David Foster. He's our executive producer. Dr. Foster is a writer and producer working in Los Angeles for over 15 years. He graduated from Harvard Medical School and Harvard School of Public Health. He trained as an internist at Beth Israel Hospital in Boston. Dr. Foster's additional credits include House, Law and Order Special Victims Unit, Do No Harm, and Scorpion. Welcome, Dr. Foster. Next, Aaron Ginsberg. Aaron Ginsberg is the co-executive producer. He's a writer and producer who has worked in television and film in Los Angeles for over a decade. Mr. Ginsberg was previously a co-executive producer on CW's sci-fi series The 100. Additional credits include The Good Guys, The Finder, Do No Harm, Intelligence, and Burn Notice, among others. Welcome, Mr. Ginsberg. Next, we have Shareen Razak, who is the co-executive producer. Shareen Razak began her professional life in advertising as a high-level media planner in Dallas and New York. She moved to Los Angeles to pursue her dream of writing for the small screen. Her credits include NBC's Trauma, Undercovers, The Secret Circle, Rizzoli and Isles, and others. She wrote the episode we just watched. Welcome, Ms. Razak. And last but not least, Graham Norris. Graham is a supervising producer. He's also the liaison for the show to multiple medical foundations. From Northern California, he went to Yale University and earned a cum laude degree in theater studies. Mr. Norris has worked for the CW's iZombie and several pilots for Warner Brothers. Welcome, Mr. Norris. I'm going to sit down here and join you guys. Let me just scoot back up in my chair. You guys sit in these all the time, right? All right, so I have a few questions, and we'll get started with some of my questions, and then we'll toss to the audience for a few questions. So you guys be thinking about the questions you might want to ask, okay? David Schulner, you helped bring this show to life. Congratulations on its success. What do you think has been the key to making New Amsterdam a hit show, and what makes it unique amongst the medical dramas?
I think what makes it unique and successful, I think maybe the same thing. I think it's how we hope or wish healthcare could be, as opposed to depicting it how it really is sometimes. The impetus for the show was based on a real story. Eric Mannheimer was the medical director of Bellevue for 15 years in New York. And when I met him, and he was telling me the stories of what he did as a medical director, I thought, surely that's impossible. In the pilot episode of New Amsterdam, we used a lot of what he actually did at Bellevue, which he fired the entire cardiothoracic surgery department, just eliminated it from Bellevue, and rebuilt it from the ground up. And story after story about how he could affect change in the oldest public hospital in America, one of the biggest public hospitals in New York, that change was still possible, that there were people out there who actually made a difference, was inspiring to me. So the impetus for New Amsterdam was to inspire others and to inspire an audience that change was still possible in this seemingly impossible to change healthcare industry.
Thank you. I think that we have a lot in common. You know, we try to inspire people to donate. We inspire people through our process of transplantation, and I think we have a lot in common in trying to help tell those stories. Thank you. My next question is for Dr. Foster. Dr. Foster, could you talk about your role in the writing team and how you got involved in the entertainment industry as a physician?
I came to writing through storytelling, really. I mean, I've always been interested in telling stories. In fact, that's how I became a doctor, is because I was interested in listening to people tell their stories. And, you know, if you ask and listen to almost anybody, we all have crazy lives once you sort of get and listen to what people have to say. And I've enjoyed being able to take my medical expertise and training and turn that into stories that are hopefully entertaining on television and that people want to watch, but also, you know, provide messages and social meaning that go beyond just the entertainment of the characters and each other. I think that how that translates directly into what we do day to day at New Amsterdam is, you know, we spend a lot of time writing our episodes sort of family style. You know, we sit around a table and we all work collaboratively together to tell these stories. And one of the great things about working as a writer is just that all the people I work with are all incredibly smart and incredibly motivated and work really hard. And we all come up with ideas, not all of them good, some of them good, hopefully some of them are good. And we take the best of them and we put them together to make an episode of television. But it is just sort of a wonderfully collaborative process.
Thank you. Thank you. Shareen, you wrote this episode. Could you talk about what inspired your storyline?
I'm going to try and say this without crying. Sorry. It was my mom. My mom was, a liver transplant recipient. And so it was kind of a love story for my mom, and to honor her and to honor all the people like you who gave her the extra 10 years that we had with her. Because in those 10 years, she got to see all of us graduate from college, saw 2 of us get married, saw my other brother get engaged, and she wouldn't have had any of that without people like you. And I'm so very grateful for that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you. I think Sung has some Kleenexes for you. I'm going to make sure. We usually have Kleenexes at these events because, telling stories and sharing our experiences, you're not the first one to cry. I think all of us here have shed a few tears.
Reg got me started.
Okay, so I'd like to ask this question of Mr. Ginsberg Aaron. When you are writing, how do you balance drama and facts?
That's a good question. The thing that's interesting is for different shows have different wavelengths in terms of how close to the facts that you want to adhere to. On this show, we try to be as truthful as we can because the show is trying to instill hope, and we don't want to do it if we're going so far outside the bounds of what can actually be done. Then it becomes just a fantasy show set in a hospital, which is not what we're trying to do. So normally what happens is myself or some of the other writers will pitch things that are just absolutely impossible because we don't really know what can be done because we're not medical professionals. And then Dr. Foster will sort of look at us askance And then we're shamed. There's a lot of shame. And we go home and we research a little more, and we come back and we try again. We pitch something more, and Dr. Foster
Provides
says,
answers too. He actually answers.
yeah, but sometimes he wants
feedback.
he wants to let you sit out there and be like, is that how you think it works?
But then he'll help you.
Eventually, yes. After the third or fourth time, he gets joy out of watching us just, struggle. But then, yes, he provides answers. No, but the truth of the matter is that we want to find a balance between the drama, and what often happens in our show is that I'm from a family of all doctors. I'm the only one who's not a doctor, although getting closer, right? Getting closer. Practically a doctor now. But oftentimes in the storytelling, the actual professionals could solve some of these stories a little faster if you were actually, we try to hide some facts so that we can provide some entertainment and guide people who, much like myself, are not in the profession. So that is the trick, and we want to be truthful while still providing some fun twists and turns for people who wouldn't know otherwise, things that I think professionals would know pretty quickly off the bat.
So along those lines, do you seek out experts for consultation around specific medical issues? And what is your relationships with those consultants? Any one of you? Yeah,
I think we do. It depends on the episode. I mean, Eric Mannheimer, who Scholler mentioned, he is a resource to the show, and he often provides, not only he has opinions about things he's experienced at Bellevue Hospital, but he would also...
He's an internist, David? Yes. He's an internist.
So he has like real life stories that he's experienced or he's heard of, and he will help guide us. Obviously, you have tons of experience.
Yeah, we do reach out, like Shareen reached out for our transplant story, and for other stories, we certainly reach out to people with specific knowledge of those areas, and it's incredibly helpful to us.
Thank you. As the Donate Life community works with the entertainment industry, we often talk about helping writers be accurate. But we've changed our message to the idea of being authentic. Do you think that there is a critical difference between accuracy and authenticity? Authenticity? Authenticity?
We got you.
If I could say it, there probably would be a difference, right?
Graham, do you want to take that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think it sort of goes along the lines of what Aaron was talking about earlier about that the burden of putting a show on television, I think, is to try to, a show like this is you want to capture the emotional truth of any one of these given stories. You asked about speaking to experts in individual subjects. That's often one of the most rewarding things, not just for the texture of biological or procedural fact, but getting to some of the emotional nuance that if you had not lived through it, you might not know it. And it just, it's an incredible, it's I don't know if this is quite the word, but it's fun to hear about people's interesting lives and their stories. And things that take 5 weeks in real life when the exigencies of a plot require that it's happening in a day and a half because that's how much time we have. That I think that letting that stand in the way of telling a story that adheres in its in its bulwarks and its central pillars that's really the mission of the thing, and you don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Would be my sense for this.
If I may, accuracy is a tricky word, because accuracy for whom, and often there's many different people with different stakeholders around different issues and that type of thing. But one of the things that I think is most valuable, as you say, and I think I love your phrasing of authentic, is trying to be true to the spirit of the situation and what it is. That is also like one of the most valuable things in trying to come up with these stories and trying to find things, is hearing real life stories from people, because oftentimes there are hurdles and obstacles that we don't even know about, or we could never know about, or even that I never learned about in medical school, or they're just real life examples of what people are going through, provides so much fodder for us in things for us to talk about and ideas that spring from that, and that's that even that, as you're saying, like those stories are so valuable to us and much more valuable than facts sometimes.
Thank you. I want to talk about another episode about a young woman with cystic fibrosis. It doesn't mention transplantation, but it highlights some of the issues facing young people with chronic issues that can lead to a transplant. Graham, you wrote this episode. Why did you take on this storyline?
Well, I suppose it actually began selfishly. I discovered when I was working on having children that I carry the cystic fibrosis gene, and that it is, and that were I to reproduce with somebody who also carried, that I have a 1 in 4 shot of having cystic fibrosis, and that just sort of, it was jumped into my mind as this thing that I'd never really given much of a thought about at all. That is sort of hovering in my life in a way that I maybe never would have stumbled across through sheer luck. And I think so many illnesses that not always the ones that get the most press, it's that they're all someone's life, and as I started researching this more, it turned out that one of the writer's assistant on our show, his family turns out to have been deeply touched by cystic fibrosis, and the conversation that his willingness to talk to me about his experience, and then to get to talk to everybody about all of the different experiences. It's a real. It feels very good and and healing to kind of start digging into these things. And it also was when I started speaking to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, who was kind enough to offer some insight on this, to learn about specifically about being a young person who is becoming an adult, and what it is to be someone who knows that they have a disease that is going to eventually probably be the end of them. What that is to go from a child's understanding of it to an adult's understanding of it felt like a very emotional and specific part of a story. And that's just the kind of thing that we look for. And it makes David Schulner happy when we send him little emails about it. So it was it felt like exactly the sort of thing that made me very grateful to be working on the show.
Thank you. So that person that you were speaking with, that's how you brought that authentic voice to that storyline?
Well, what also helped a lot is we have a magnificent casting department in New York that often tries to help us find actors who have lived this experience. The young actress who played the patient in my episode is herself living with cystic fibrosis and living just a really cool life, and just she's a really inspiring young woman. And how awesome to get to her to be able to, you want authenticity. That's someone who, when she's, that's certainly one where you feel like you really hope you didn't screw it up too badly when you wrote it, when you're
But nicely, the actors will tell us. I mean,
Yes.
that's part, in talking about authenticity, when you hire actors who have the disabilities or the diseases that we're portraying, many times after we read the script aloud, they'll come up to you and say, I wasn't sure about this line. This isn't my experience. It may be someone else's, but I might suggest something else.
Okay.
And you only get that authenticity when you're committed to using those actors.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
They find such nice ways to tell you that you've been really insulting unintentionally. It's very kind of them, really. It's a gift.
Yes, that's very kind of them, right? Okay, so I have a question for all of you. I would like to know, for all of you, how can everyone in this room help you share your stories? And how can we highlight your episodes that take on donation and transplant? Let's just start with somebody. Raise your hand. I'm going to call on people.
I mean, just hearing your stories when Shareen came to me with the idea, I had never heard of a domino transplant. Mm-hmm. I was like, this is real? I watch TV, I go to the movies, and I'd never seen this before. So just hearing your stories and is immeasurable.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I've been enjoying just having drinks, taking coffee with people to hear their stories. There's a storyline that I can't talk about, but that I met with somebody over our hiatus just to get more information about it, and it's inspiring, horrifying, and uplifting all at the same time, in the hopes that we'll be able to tell that story on our show.
So you guys are in the writer's room right now, and the season premieres again the season starts again in September, right?
September 24th?
Okay, September 24th, we're all ready, okay. So I'd like to now ask our attendees, and we also may have some questions from our live stream. But before I do that, I do have something I have to tell the audience. Please allow me to remind you that these are television writers, and anything you share here is of your own free will today, okay? If anything you share, any part of your story ends up in one of their episodes, please just say thank you and move on. Don't expect to be famous, don't expect any credit, and don't expect to get paid. So, and this is just a standard disclaimer, but I'm sure you all definitely appreciate the thought behind that. So we want everybody to be open, but we also want to be transparent. So,
Can I get that on a T-shirt that I could just wear at all times?
Yes, that you can wear at all times,
Yeah.
so when anybody
Just
talks to
email
you,
that.
they know.
Exactly. Just
Right.
email that to me, and I can
Yes.
wear that all the time.
Anything you say today is free, right?
Did you hear that, Mom?
All right. So can I please, is there someone in the audience that would like to come up to the mic? I'd like to have you come up one at a time, please, so we don't get a big, long line of everyone. But we are definitely interested in hearing your questions for our guest speakers. Perfect. Thank you.
First of all, I must say thank you so much for being here. I have a question for anyone that'd like to answer. Do you have any future plans of writing another story about donation?
That's interesting. The answer is, do we have plans? Maybe not, because that's the way the writing process works. But I do think it's, because of each episode's only so long, I don't think we've tapped into everything that we can explore with this topic. And I feel like every day we'll be talking this group of writers who are so amazing, and we will bring in different pieces. And oftentimes they fall into different categories. And I think the answer is yes, we will at some point find a different take to this world, so we can bring new information. Do we have it right now? No, we don't. But like, it's, we are just starting season 2. Give us a few weeks. But
Because we did 3 last year.
Yeah.
Or
Is it 3? So when your stories, did you have an opportunity to work side by side with another organ procurement organization, or tour or see procurement?
I haven't seen procurement. I've only been on the recipient side.
Oh, interestingly enough, the actress who plays Dora on our show, Sabrina, she, over the hiatus, gave her mother a kidney. And she said she was partly inspired by the show.
That's wonderful.
So it's just a beautiful...
That's wonderful. And that was my other question, is if you knew anyone else that was inspired by your show and act upon by what you did. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll give Ava just a minute to get here. It's okay.
I just want to tell you first, I love your show. I have friends here. We all love your show.
Thank you.
I was curious as to, my name's Ava, and I had a heart transplant 10 years ago. I received a heart in 10 days on my birthday. My story is amazing, as all of them are. However, I started a nonprofit called Avas Heart to assist transplant and donor families. And one of the really big issues in getting listed for a transplant is that if you don't live near your transplant center and you can't prove that you have 3 months of post-transplant housing, you can't get listed. And I think that that's, when I tell people that, they just freak out. So that just might be something you might want to think about. And I'm also going to give you all an invitation to my gala on the 8th. I am a One Legacy partner. Thank you, One Legacy. We also help donor families, any donor family that's in need of help with cremation or burial. We do that as well. And so we're kind of starting a new thing. And I'll give you any information you want for free. But you have to put me on one episode.
Ava, thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Ava, for everything that you do. Thank you. Is there any other questions in our audience? Come on, don't be shy. This is your opportunity. Come on up to the mic. Dr. Liang,
Hi, my name's Leo.
just 1 second. Stand up there. Okay.
I'm a transplant surgeon, and I wish my life were a quarter as glamorous as the TV lives of your transplant surgeons. But I was wondering if you, because a long time ago I watched an episode of Grey's Anatomy with my wife, who's also a transplant physician, and we were outraged at something that one of the characters lobbied for a heart transplant for her boyfriend and was involved in getting the heart for her boyfriend of a patient in the hospital. And I'm wondering if you understand really how there's a line between the living donor side and the recipient side that we try very hard not to cross in the transplant world. And I think on TV, that doesn't happen all the time because you're interested in getting the most dramatic storylines, and it looks good for maybe surgeons to interact with like the donor family or something like that, but we try very hard to keep that separate, and I just don't know if you realize that, because we see that line crossed on TV in episode after episode, and it makes organizations like One Legacy, we have a hard time fighting the image that we're like vultures trying to harvest organs. We try not to even use the word harvest. So I'm just wondering if you guys understood that.
We've only done living,
Yeah.
living recipients and
We hopefully are.
donors.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, and thank you for bringing it up. I appreciate it. And we certainly don't want to cross that line. I hope we don't cross that line. I don't think we have yet. But I hear what you're saying. It is something that is, as you point out, dramatically, it is appealing to some. But I think that we work hard not to make your life harder. That's for sure. And thank you for the work you do, and thank you for the work that everyone does in this area. Much appreciated.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Liang. Come on up.
This question isn't really about transplant, but I was impressed this season that you were always discussing insurance. I was like, yes, to the TV all the time because I'm really, I wonder, have you had any backlash about that? The fact that if anyone doesn't watch the show, they're always talking about the Ryan Eggold's character is outraged that people can't get treated because they don't have insurance. So he's like, well, I'm going to give you a New Amsterdam card and everybody can have, we're doing 50,000, I think, or 500,000 he was going to do.
But and this is what they just did in New York. We do a week after we premiered, de Blasio was handing out cards.
Oh.
But
one thing, I'm a volunteer actually at Cedars-Sinai, and I know, and I work in the ER, and I know that I don't know if it's different in New York versus California, but in California, if you come to the ER, they have to see you, regardless, they don't know if you have insurance or you don't until registration comes to the patient after. Is it different in New York because your New Amsterdam's supposed to be like Bellevue?
No, it's
Do you
the
know
same.
that? I mean, I don't know.
It is the same. It doesn't mean they won't bill you after you
Well, of
leave
course.
the
Well,
hospital.
that we know.
But-
Believe me.
And, you know, I will say that we have been, I don't know of any backlash that we've gotten.
They're not advertising on our show. Let's say that.
I will say, having one of the things that I've really appreciated in living in writing in this world that David Schloner created, and is that, you know, we over the year of writing the first season, we would sort of walk up to a line and we'd be like, can we really say that? Can we really criticize? Can we really say that about the insurance industry? And people weren't. And David was like, yes. And then we'd walk up to a farther line and be like, are we really going to say that? And David would be like, yes. And then we'd walk even farther, and I was amazed at the things, at how far we went in sort of just like talking about the underinsured, the people who are underdogs and unable to get care in our society, even today, with all of the resources that we have, how many people don't have basic health care, or if they do get it, it will bankrupt them. And it's been great to be able to talk about those issues, and really it's a great world that David created, and he has encouraged us at every step to go farther, and I've been frankly surprised. But
Get ready for season 2 because we are out of control.
That's why I will always watch this show, because I haven't seen anything that hasn't been true. But thanks, I love it.
Thank you. Mr. Moan.
We'll take advantage of it. One thing that I loved about that particular scene there, when I saw it the first time, when it showed live during the season, and again, just it continues to work, the fact that it's behind the scenes, there's humor, it's silly humor, and we know it exists in medicine, in the life and death world of medicine. On the other hand, it's very easy to throw the humor out in a way that's disrespectful to the underlying human drama that's underneath it. And as I was writing myself some notes for tonight, I was thinking I was going to talk about the drama, and I was going to talk about the humor, but I decided not to bring it up because it seemed too hard, but you gave me the groundwork here. I think it looked very well done, because that does exist in the world, but it was not in any way disrespectful. And I guess my question out of this, is that done with intentionality and forethought, or is it just because you fundamentally have respect for the drama and the story you're telling?
Shareen, do you want your episode?
I think every episode we try to emulate the pilot that David wrote, which is infused with drama and pathos and humor, and making sure that we're getting the message across but not cramming it down anybody's throat. And sometimes the best way to do that is with humor and to make it a little bit lighter. And I'm very grateful for the tone of the show, because it feels like we are reaching a lot of people and hopefully changing hearts and minds because of it.
It can be a bit of a cudgel if you just push the drama too hard, and this is a beautiful balance, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moan. Do we have another question? A couple more? Okay, well then. Oh. Wait your turn, Matt. Please, go ahead.
I want to tell you, I'm so glad you're here, because especially listening to you, because New Amsterdam is my favorite show, so that's wonderful. But there is a little personal side to that. I'm a donor mom. So when you started talking about donation, boy, does that hit home. One thing that I want to ask is, if you guys go into it further, if you decide to do another episode, if you could kind of look into what the families are going through, what the donor families have to deal with, how are they handling that moment? I think if more people could know that there is hope behind that yes, you're sitting there and you're knowing that your loved one's not going to come home, your loved one's not going to be alive after today, your loved one is now you're going to say goodbye to them in the hospital, thinking that there's hope behind it, that you can actually take that and say, you know what? My daughter was only 20 years old when she passed. She didn't have enough time to really experience too much. But she has helped so many with her tissue donation and saved the life of a little baby. So for me, knowing that you guys have the opportunity to really express to the world that when someone donates, it brings hope. I'm hoping that you guys think of considering an episode on that. And I'd be more than happy to help you with any information you need. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's amazing stories like that is why we're here today. And this is why we all work together. Matt, can you follow that? Let's see what you got.
I don't think I can. No, mine's more boring. But first of all, thank you for highlighting organ transplant. It is the coolest field of medicine, hands down. It's the most powerful field of medicine, as you can tell. She knows. I work at Cedars. I'm an organ preservationist. And I think I wanted to ask you guys, if you plan or you have, I haven't watched the show, I'll be honest, to highlight disparities in organ transplant. Because it happens on both sides, on the recipient side and the donor side. So on the recipient side, you have people who don't get organs. On the donor side, you have people who don't give organs. And I think if you highlight that, one, legacy will be a lot busier, but also, but also it'll help a lot more people. More importantly, you know.
I'm so sorry. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, just disparities, maybe between race or between religion or between culture. You know, Income's a very powerful one, actually. She's right. You know, so there's trust issues with medicine, with physicians, and the population, certain demographics of the population. You know, so I think it's a powerful topic in medicine in general, but particularly in organ transplant. So, yeah, and it isn't focused just in the United States. It's around the world too. You know, so in different countries, you know, they have issues with organ transplantation. For example, Japan. I think they did their first heart transplant in like 2003 or 2004, you know, so, and they were just anti-organ transplantation in general. So it is a powerful topic to look into, and I think you'll even expand your demographic in who watches your show, you know, so.
Including you? Will you watch the show?
I will watch the show.
Okay.
Yeah, but it will help a lot of people, and I think, you know, part of my master's thesis was on this, you know, and there's organ trafficking, and there's all these things that, you know, and Vice did a great special on organ trafficking, how people are paid a certain amount of money for a kidney, and then, you know, they're taking, you know, not giving all that. So there's a lot of disparities in this field, as beautiful as it is and as great as it is, and the experts have planned everything out. There are a lot of places that could really use Hollywood's help, you know, so, yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Another question? Thank you.
A comment, if I can. My name is Rachel. I'm an ambassador with One Legacy. I want to thank you for your work on this show. I started watching it with your episode and haven't stopped because not only do you do these very important donation stories, but Max and my husband have the same cancer. So hopefully you give him a happy ending because we have one. And I wanted to tell you how important these stories are because it's just a matter of having the right person sitting there watching it to make a difference in the lives of so many people. For me, 10 years ago, it was Katie Couric sitting in my living room telling me about kidney chains. I didn't know a thing about them, and now my kidney's in Pennsylvania. So it's a matter of telling the story at the right time and having the right people listen. So keep telling those stories, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. How are we doing out there? Do we have any more questions? Are there any questions from our Facebook? Tanya, come on up. We want to say hello to everyone who is watching us on Facebook. And
Can I have everybody wave really quickly?
We're going to wave.
Thank you.
And Tanya is going to help ask their questions.
Yes, so I have a couple of questions and a few comments. There's a medical question.
I'll take that.
Thank you very much, doctor. It says, my husband died at the age of 46 from what they said was an aortic dissection aneurysm. How common is that? And from a 46-year-old healthy patient with mild hypertension. We have a lot of doctors here, so if anybody has a comment.
David Schulner.
Dr. Foster.
Not comment on our show.
Okay. Anybody in the public who has maybe a comment for this person who's asking? Okay, we'll look into that question and we'll answer for you later on. Thank you. Let's see what other questions we have. I hope they do an episode as well showing a donor family. This is now one of the comments. And I have two more questions. One is, would you be open to working with a writer who has actually been through the rounds of medical situations of several kinds to add an additional layer of authenticity to your already incredible show? Will you be considering somebody who, because you have already worked with patients, people who are, like the person who had the cystic fibrosis, the actor, and would you be willing to work maybe with other writers who would like to collaborate with their stories?
We have writers not even on this stage. We have Laura and Leah here in the front row. We're also writers on New Amsterdam.
Hi, Laura and Leah.
Hi, Laura and Leah.
So I think sadly and gratefully we have enough writers.
Okay.
But thank you.
Thank
The
you,
room
guys.
is full. Yes.
Thank you. And how can then look at storylines of patients who may start out with a condition that links into other situations, such as ultimately needing a transplant? Just an idea to what they wanted to share. Okay? Well, thank you very much,
All right.
guys.
Thank you, Tony. And
Thank
thank you to our audience on Facebook. Thank you. Okay. So if there are no further questions, I think we'll wrap up this session and we'll move into our next session. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you all.
It's been an amazing evening. Thank you.